Now, in this tutorial, let's understand VLOOKUP. VLOOKUP stands for vertical lookup. There are two lookups. One is VLOOKUP, the other one is HLOOKUP. HLOOKUP is horizontal lookup, where you do the lookup as per the columns. VLOOKUP is you look up in a vertical fashion. Okay, let's discuss VLOOKUP today. What does VLOOKUP do is it will look up for a value with reference to a table. That's what in simple English it means. Okay, so in this example what I have is, if you look at these columns, I have a detailed balance sheet. Okay, and here I have a summary balance sheet. So I got you two examples here. Let me do one by one. Let's look at the top one first. So detailed balance sheet is where usually the financial accountants work on, and the summary balance sheet is what the management gets. Okay, the management don't want to see every single line item, they just want to have a bird's view. So in this example we use VLOOKUP. Okay, let's look at VLOOKUP here. The way we do it is we put equals to, put VLOOKUP, okay, open bracket. What I want is I want to look for this particular cell, comma, that is called as a lookup value, put a comma, and this is the table I want to look from. Okay, so I've selected the table and I put F4. Just notice what happens here. Just keep your eye on here. As soon as I put F4, this becomes $G, $11, $H, $50. So it is actually locking that table. You can either use F4 or you can name that table. But in this example, let's say I'm using just F4. In the future example, in the future tutorials, I'll show you how to name a table. But for this exercise, let's assume that we are using F4, okay, which is the locking of this table. Right. So I've selected the table from where I want the lookup from. I put a comma. Now, this is column 1, this is column 2. So in this particular table, which I've selected, this is column 1 and column 2. So what I want is I want to select column 2 because the idea behind it is I want to look at this total current assets and to look at the total current assets item here, but give me this value. So that's the meaning behind it. So I want the second column as a result here. Put a comma and put a false, because if you put true, it will say, yeah, roughly not the exact match. But if you put false, if it is not an exact match, it will not give me a result. Because I'm dealing with numbers, I want a result only if it's an exact match. That's why I put a false here. Okay, say enter. There you go. Right? And then I will drag it down. Okay, there you go. So the VLOOKUP, the way it worked is it is looking at this particular value from this table and identify where it is in the table and give me the second column result. Okay, so sometimes you can have third column, fourth column, fifth column. You just have to count the number of columns. If this is the first column, that is where it is looking it from. Second column, third column, and fourth column. So if you want a result from the fourth column, all you do is put number 4 here. Okay, that is a VLOOKUP. Now, when you're doing VLOOKUP, it is not necessary that these have to be in exact order as the table. They can be in any particular order. That's why in this example, I have an example with sorted by all alphabetical order. If you know this balance sheets, usually assets are on the top and liabilities are on the bottom. But in this example, I have assets and a liability, again an asset and again a liability. So it's just all over the place. Even here, the VLOOKUP should work. Okay, let us see how it works. So again, equals to VLOOKUP, open bracket. I want to look up this particular cell, comma, and from which table I want this table, and I'm pressing F4 because I need to lock the table. put a comma. My mouse is here, by the way, if you're wondering where my mouse is. Comma, and I want the second column to comma. I want the exact match. If it's not an exact match, I don't want a result. Okay, so it's a false. So you drag it down, you got the numbers. And intentionally, I have two additional words here, assets and liabilities, where the results are 0. Okay, if you notice, the assets, this is blank. So whenever there's a blank in that VLOOKUP, it will automatically take as 0. Okay, you can leave it as blank and this will automatically become 0. The other very important thing you need to remember when doing VLOOKUP is these values should be unique. Okay, these values cannot repeat. What happens is if you have a word called, say for example, let's look at this one, total assets is $316. Say if you have total assets $316 and if you have total assets $316, but if you have another line called total assets for $100, the way a VLOOKUP works is it will only pick up the top value. Okay, it will just look up in the table and it will first pick up as total assets, and whatever the figure is there, it's going to result here. Even though you have 10 total assets below that with different values, it will not show you the reference from one below, right? So you got to be extremely careful that when you're doing VLOOKUP, when you're doing the VLOOKUP, the reference should be unique and they should not be repeating. So what I would suggest is look at this example, and maybe if you want, you can copy this exact example in your worksheet and try to play with VLOOKUP. I would suggest you do like 5 to 7 to 10 VLOOKUPs before you feel confident.